This next section is going to be pretty informal. We heard in the morning, Dr. Albie Miles said only 12% of households have the recommended supply of food, water, and medicine stored. And for me, one of the takeaways from the morning panel was we can't expect government to come in and save us. So that household emergency food preparedness is really key. And so this is one of the reasons why we have all of these wonderful organizations here to just kind of help us see, taste, and learn about various community approaches to increasing household emergency food preparedness. We also are just hoping to spark thoughtful discussion about the challenges to increasing household food preparedness. So I'm just going to go down the line here and ask each organization to kind of, you could please share your name, organization, what you brought in, and how it kind of relates to the work that you do in the community.
Hello, everyone. My name's Mariella, and I'm with Hawaiʻi Foodbank. Today with me, we have a couple of things. We brought in some humanitarian daily rations, cases of them. So I think, per individual, I would probably recommend having at least 2 of them. Inside each of the boxes, we have 5 menus, enough food for about 20 meals. And I do have some samples here. So we have lentil stew, veggie barley stew, oatmeal cookie, shortbread cookies and crackers, and there's peanut butter and jam if anyone would like to try. But FEMA releases HDRs, I believe, every year, and so the food bank does get access to those by either through bidding for them or getting them donated. And then our responsibility is to get that out into communities to folks that are most vulnerable, so that they have something that's high calorie and shelf stable in the event of the disaster. I also brought along one of our Cow for Kiki boxes from the summer. So for our program, we actually do both shelf stable and perishable, because we know that there are families that don't have the ability to store too much fresh stuff. And so that includes, milk, rice, oatmeal, and shelf stable protein. So salmon, tuna, and fruits and vegetables. So yeah, just to know that there are healthy options. Of course, the HDRs are not something that should be eaten over long term, but they're designed for that specific purpose in disaster response to give people nutrition. So thank you.
Can I ask a few follow-up questions? For those of you who are not familiar with the humanitarian daily rations, is that how do you prepare them? Do you just open them and eat them? Do you need to add water?
So these are all actually ready to eat, and it would, I'm sure, be nice to have them heated, like the stews. But we just open the package here, and so that people could see, like, in reality. I actually have 2 of these boxes at home. But in reality, like, what would happen if you don't have, right? We have hurricanes and typhoons, or we don't have power or water, and people might not have the means to heat things up. You won't need any water or heat to prepare or to eat these.
And then a second question. Okay. Food Bank has really been at the forefront of informing us how much food insecurity is a problem in our community. And I'm just wondering about those households who, we have 14 days recommended food and water and medicine supplied. Many households don't know what they're going to eat that night. I'm just wondering how costs can factor into emergency preparedness.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, so I think, thinking of it from the food bank perspective, like, that's why it's so important that we do what we do, and not just make sure that, fresh produce is available, but the shelf stable piece is really key. And when families are working too, they might not always have the time to prepare everything. And so I think, for our folks who are looking to support our work, that's why it's so crucial, because if these families don't have the funds to access it, we need to help get them or find them ways to get access. And so, we really can't do this without the supportive community. I couldn't imagine if all of this food went to waste when there were so many people in need.
I guess it's fair to say something is better than nothing. So even though, if you can't do 14 days, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Thank you. Thank you. How about Hannah for having
Hello, mai kākou. My name is Chris Fujimoto. I'm the Community Wellness Manager for Elepaio. I'm the Community Wellness Manager for Elepaio Social Services. We are a wholly owned nonprofit as part of the Waʻa Coast Comprehensive Health Center. Today, I brought out another example of how they have the HDRs. These are the buckets, right? And so everything inside of this bucket is either freeze dried or dehydrated. Um, Food wise, it's a little bit different. So these are not technically ready to eat. These need to be reconstituted. It recommends boiling water. So for today's samples, we use boiling water. But technically, you can just use room temperature water. As we said, right? Sometimes in disasters, you might not have access to a heat source. Yeah. You can use room temperature water. It's just not going to be as fast to consume. So you just kind of have to let it sit and thicken. Texturally, it might not be the same either, but both options are available. There's everything from cereal to granola. The samples that we brought out, there's a tortilla soup, a creamy pasta. There's a Santa Fe rice with ground beef. There's a pot pie mix, and there's even a teriyaki rice. So in terms of going down the line of the different examples of these disaster preparedness foods, they range in what is being given to the community. For us, we actually have 2 pre-recovery pods of these buckets, yeah, up to 240,000 portions per pod. And so this is our effort to allow resilience within our community. And one of the things that we are actually working towards is something called a food campus, or our own resilience hub within Waʻa. And so it'll be moving to the right of our health center. It's gonna have everything from commercial kitchen to teaching kitchens to be able to teach the community how to grow their own food, how to cook their own food, and create that real idea of resilience within our community. And it'll also be in partnerships with the food bank. We'll also have on its own food warehouse as well on our campus. So a larger food warehouse that can store larger amounts of food for our community in the event before or after a disaster. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. So one of the things that we were talking about kind of in planning for this event was that a lot of folks, you don't live necessarily in just households of 1 or 2 people. Many folks have many generations living under one roof. And I was wondering, in your work, do you experience do you see a lot of families and households with that? And what does that mean for in terms of preparing and just in terms of physical space as well?
So one of the challenges when it comes to our community, right, like you were saying, multi-generational homes, we also run kupuna and keiki pantries 5 days a week, every single week. And so we have kupuna that are picking up for their entire families, for themselves. And so when it comes to space, right, when asking our community, especially if our community is in a place of disadvantage where every day can be a disaster for them when it comes to food, when it comes to finances, asking them to have 14 days supply can be hard. Yeah. And so we mentioned 3 to 5 days even is enough to ask. So finding ways to teach them what that looks like in every single way possible for everyone's situation is really important. And we have seen that within our community. We've done distributions before where we've passed out these HDRs or MREs or even buckets, and within the hour they're already eating it. Yeah. So they're not waiting for the disaster to come, they're already consuming it. So that tells true to the amount of need within our community. And so for us, we are learning how to serve our community better, and what that looks like on specifically within our community.
Aloha, my name is Bren Foster. I'm the founder of Voyaging Foods. We've been making ʻŌlelo flour and cauliflower for 2 decades. And one of the things, I'm really grateful to be here, but we really want to promote families being able to grow and make their own food so that we're not dependent on outside sources. And so I think that's why we're here to promote that. We've been building little dry boxes. So for dehydration, we've been able to dehydrate about 500 pounds of ʻŌlelo and kalo in our own dehydrator that's off the grid. So that's something we're going to start doing is workshops to promote that through other organizations that some of them are here, and to just promote more self-resiliency in our own homes.
Yeah, thank you. So you can really see how we're not just doing like immediate disaster response in terms of the food, but also kind of longer term resilience. And one follow-up question I was hoping to ask is what kind of nutritional considerations should we keep in mind?
Yeah, there's a lot of we have to watch the sodium. I'm also a health coach with Dr. Shintani, and he wrote an amazing it's out there if you want to see it, but it's about the just watch sodium and things that are in canned goods for longevity. There are ways of keeping food safe, shelf stable without all the preservatives. And so anyway, if you can read the Waianae diet, he wrote this program, and complex carbohydrates, which is, ulu and kala, are very healthy. And so there's not a lot of meat and dairy in that diet. So I think that's something to look at is what do we really need on a daily basis? And, this paper talks about it. It's published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So anyone who wants to see it, he's the one that I believe in a lot of for nutritional information.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it over to you. Sorry, it's going to be a lot.
Aloha mai kākou. Kia ora tōku adui. Coming from Voyaging Makali'i on Hawaii Island. And we took the lessons of our canoe and how we want to change that food that we're consuming on the voyage. How do we replace all of our canned goods? Because we don't have refrigeration, right? And so we my navigator, Chan Paishan, in a beautiful pink shirt, he's rocking it. He says, a challenge. How can we in our modern day provision one voyaging canoe, like our kupuna did, strictly from home? And that was a beautiful challenge. And we had 3 years to do it. We wanted to be at Moku Mana by summer solstice. And we gathered our island. And we says, hey, guys, we got a challenge. You want to help do this? And he said, yes. And so we all worked together because nobody had all the answers. We had some people who knew how to recondition our soil, some people who were the haloa experts, some people were water experts, the hulu experts, the hunters, the gatherers, and we came together and taught each other, learned with each other, dropped our vulnerabilities and our egos and say, I need to learn that skill. Would you help teach me that? I can do this. Would you like to learn how to do that? And we just pulled our strengths like our kupuna would, and we were able to make it to Moku Mana with a huge abundance. So if our little canoe can do it, you can do it too. So what we'd really do was teach each other. So we taught each other how to do canning. We taught each other how to do freeze drying. And I needed help because my voyaging canoe was only about 16 people, and I needed the help of other partners like Vibrant Bavaki, who says, hey, Cal, are you willing to trade? Are you willing to give me a supply list? Let's go teach our hubs on our island. So we're creating these capacity building. There needs to be more of us. And so it's igniting and inspiring our different mokus to feed themselves. So with partnerships with Vibrant Hawaii, who's really helped us do that, with the Pohala Center, who helped us to create a library canning kit, right? That you're gonna come and take the course. Now after you've proven that you can not kill somebody, then you can come borrow our equipment, right? And take it to your community and fill your pantries. So to help answer some of those other questions about how can we help each other to do this when we're living day by day, paycheck by paycheck, how do we still fill our pantries? So it's learning together, make and take together, right? And collaborate. And so another collaboration was big time for me because, again, I'm cooking only for a group of 16 on my waʻa, was connecting with Auntie Tavi. So she's the Aipono expert that's been cooking it up for generations with her daddy, and teaching the next generations to keep the canoe crops on our menus, to keep that palette for our keikis going on and on. And so, Auntie. So for me, bigger pots, more food you can cook, right? And we stick to what we know best. And Aina is what we know best. right? Why we don't need to go across the ocean? We can just stay home and cook what we get. And so we pay homage to Haloa first. Haloa is who we acknowledge first. And then we get our uala, we get our ulu, and we get everything else that comes with that, right? And so I stay true to that. Yeah, I have Hawaii on my daily menu, on my daily work for our communities. So I can cook from 1 to 20,000 in a heartbeat. It's that simple when you get a good husband, number one, right? And then it takes a village. Who get what, drop him off to me and let us take care of it, right? So we faced a lot of things like that. But in our partnership for the freeze dried food, it actually was out of need for Maui. When the fire happened, Keala and Chatty was already on Maui. They was going to do a canning workshop. I called Keala and I said, we gotta go bigger and we gotta do more for our community because food taking so long to reach Maui, right? We know the story. We know how long it took and what was the barriers. So who did we depend on? We depended on Waʻa people to help Maui. They was the key to getting everybody else from the ocean, from different islands to help Maui, right? And so real story is like, okay, so what we going to do then, right? We got to cook more. We got to do more. We got to connect with our family. We got to tell them what our needs is, and let's take care of ourselves. If we're going to sit and wait, maybe not for me. But if we're ready for run, let's run now. But we got to all run together. Everybody in this room need to be running for food. We cannot keep sitting back and say, oh, let's just try. We tried already. Generations of all, they tried. But nobody listened. Yeah, so the ones that listening and paying attention, we doing. And obviously it's working. It's already here on this table. Freeze dry, mea aina Hawaii, naming and labeling and putting on our labels what I know food from. That's the key to success of mea aina Hawaii in this new generation of how can we preserve food. These bags last 30 years. But we need people. People need us because they need to eat now. So in 2 minutes, they can eat this. Luau stew. They don't gotta wait 1 hour after we cook it. They can 2 minutes, put water and eat them. Some of you have the samples already on this table. So this is super emotional, right? It's hitting the core of our na'au. I'm staring at people that can make some government changes. You know, I supply Hawaiʻi Meals on Wheels, kupuna meals, and I make sure our kupuna crops hit our kupuna table and na'au every single day. So that's the record of my dad. I'm just a vehicle to move it forward. You know, and I just that vehicle to just hey guys, what you guys doing? What you guys waiting for? Let's just do this, right? Give me food, I can cook it. There's nothing we cannot do for our own selves here at home. So for us, for Kālai and I, and the growth of our partnership with the Waʻa mentality is to take care of our entire state. We're not taking care of just our. Plenty of you even ask me, oh, Auntie, when is that going to be available? Ask James Barrows that question because we want to supply the state first. That's what our job is to go and say, hey, state, why you guys not buying this from us? We don't need actually go bid for the MREs. We'll bid what Antitami and Keala State doing, right? And then Vibrant Hawaii, which we train all the guys in the communities of Hawaii Island. We get 16 community hubs we just trained this year through Vibrant Hawaii. They're equipped, they get all the equipment, They just needed the knowledge and they can run now and take care of their own community. So partnership is real. But we gotta figure it out. Like, how come I waiting? You guys gotta knock on my door. Why you guys not knocking on my door? Because Michelle already telling people, hey, why you gotta go look outside for food? Why don't we find Itami? Right? Why don't we call Kiala? We're here, guys. All of us down this line. We're all here doing our thing. We're all taking care of our communities at every single table here. We all making differences. But so this should not end. This conversation shouldn't end because the summit will be over tomorrow. The conversation needs to continue until we can be self-sufficient and we can take care of our own mea ai Hawaii for our own aina and our own people. I just reconstituted some steamed ulu and some steamed kalo. Did you smell it? Okay, it could last in the bag for 25 years, but who wants to do that? We just steamed them, so come back and try it later, okay? Mahalo.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick Can you share what you brought in for us and so make our after that?
So,
This is same.
for samples, we had venison curry. You guys know deer is a nuisance for our aina, so we gotta eat them. Right? So make it available, but and affordable, guys. Like the middleman, cut it out, right? Because we cannot buy $30 a pound ground venison. Stop it. I just go and call my cousins all on Hawaii and tell them to send them to me, right? Like, so stop studying it for $30 a pound. So the hotel will buy it from you. We like buy them, we like eat them, we like feed our community, so let's make it available. Let's stop using the middleman to be that blockage for all of us. So the processing centers that I hearing some rumors around that they're getting some support to build these. You know, we used to have slaughterhouses, right? We just gotta figure out regulations and, you know, and get help. Put the money where it's worth it. And it is in a venison. If you're in Teso, you would not even know that was venison, right? So, and in that venison, get ulu. So it's a venison curry. Get coconut milk inside too, right? And ulu. And then we did one chicken luau stew in a bag. 2 minutes, you can eat them. Right? Right there, that. I give her a whole bag. 2 minutes, she was pounding that thing, you know? So it's as easy as that. Like I said, zero fear of cooking for multi 2 weeks. Yeah? So if we can do that, let's put them in the bags. And instead of selling us what is that? Kapa noodle, we will have a kapa luau.
One more follow-up question, if that's okay. So at the time you talked about the feeding the Waʻa state as a whole, and then Kiala, you mentioned just capacity building in general. And I was wondering if either of you could speak to like, how do we do that capacity building? Do we need bigger pots for more kitchens? Is it the partnerships that we need to lean into? Is it the training? I'm kind of curious from your perspective, what is the next step to kind of grow this?
Have more Janices and Amisha Higamas in our communities. We need more of them because they're the guys who call us guys and say, hey, aunties, we need help. And we just jump in. But they can lead the charge if we have more of them in our communities and we're listening and paying attention. Because if you guys know, they're the movers, they're the shakers and the movers that's moving things. 16 food hubs on Hawaii Island get big pots right now. They all get extra large freeze dry machines, and now they get the knowledge to cook. And now they get the knowledge for freeze dry. Now they're going to have next steps, you know? So they got to meet certifications before, you know, We get them all. You know, they have to go to classes. They cannot just say, here I am, I want it, and rather stay in a box. Because y'all and I say, very unboxing will come in and getting them. You cannot have everything if you're not gonna do it. So yes, you can apply, you can try, but we will be the final decision makers because if you skip one class, like you out. Because we're giving up plenty of time for calm. I got to fly corner and then we driving all over the whole island for teach. Like it's a lot of time and a lot of effort and we giving out knowledge. Kupuna inte we sharing. We're not just sharing nothing in a book for what we're doing. None of our recipes is in a book. It is kupuna ike, and there is no money value to kupuna ike. You guys, nobody can afford kupuna ike. But we get them in our pocket. We get them in our na'au, and we're willing to share if you're only willing to listen. And you got to do something. So, Alicia Higa and more Janice, that's what we need in our communities to push the button, right? Because I feel like I'm too old for push the button. Like, I just like cook. Just put me in the kitchen. Give me, 100 freeze dryers and just let me cook. And let me fill up every single relaxing yellow container. And let's set it all over our pipe aina first. Hokule'a is on a 3-year voyage and they're already receiving these containers from Kālai. I don't know. Who else do in the middle of the ocean? They can take more water versus more cans and trash. They gotta take simple bags and bring them. We get crew size, James Barrows need, 5-gallon size bags. We willing for take the challenge and do 5 gallons so that we can take 2 bags, feed 1,000 people. Simple as that, guys. You all still go try.
Thank you.
Awesome. Aloha mai kākou. My name is Joe Watt. I work at Key Project as a community development coordinator with a focus on AINA and resilience. And I am also here with ʻŌlelo, who is our Kupuna program coordinator. So first off, what an epic squad of folks you have over here. When we got the first email as Key Project, the community center, with the other exhibitors, I was like, oh, these are all our friends. This is going to be a fun conference. And so I really wanted to double down on what Auntie Tammy was saying about collaborations and how impactful and important that is. We actually spent a lot of time trying to think about what we could contribute that was going to be different. We have a food bank recovery pod. We and Chris has cooked for our youth programming. We have a freeze dryer and we're looking forward to working with Auntie Tammy. We got the freeze dryer because we attended a Vibrant Hawaiʻi Resilience Hub Summit and got super inspired by all of that. And so we were really thinking like, what can we add that is different? And so we brought a bunch of bush vegetables that we're really excited about. I think that oftentimes some of the things that we don't think about as we're imagining our disaster preparedness is what it is we're going to get from around us. We don't need to wait until there's a hurricane to start putting these things in our communities. There's a lot of unused space that is all over the place. Like the jungle could be something we eat if we know how to do it and if we put in a little bit of effort to make it something we can interact with. So we do have cut-ins here today if you want to take home any of this stuff. These vegetables are grown in places where people stick them in the ground. They don't want to take care of them, and when you need it, you go and you eat it, right? This is, there are canoe crops that were famine crops. The ʻape that you see out in the forest is a great example of this. People don't go out and eat that all the time, but if you gotta eat it, it's there. Similarly, the places where people plant this stuff because they don't want to take care of it could be your neighbor's yard. A lot of these are really well planted plants that are out here. So we have lopele, cassava, chaya, uala, and kalamungai that if you took all of these and stuck them in your yard, at least one of them would take off and just keep on growing for a very long time. The recipes that we have are really simple. It's just the lau we have stir fried with garlic and salt. We have freeze dried eggs and a bunch of kalamungai to just as an example of how you could stretch freeze-dried supplies to make it more nutrient dense, the kalamungai has a lot of protein in it as well, a lot of fiber. And it also just like increases the volume of food that you're eating. And then canned food wise, we have kalamungai with 1 can coconut milk and 1 can corned beef hash. Just thinking about how we can simplify the space needs when we are coming up with our 15-day supply of food. Like you're like, I only get one closet that I can abandon for preparedness, right? So like what's going to go in there? How much is going to be water? How much is going to be meat? How much is going to be canned corn? And if you can skip all the canned corn because you are confident your bush vegetables are going to be edible and delicious, it just helps. Maybe it helps your 14-day supply be a 21-day supply instead. We did also pack like, the one of these things for like cooking in the garage. I think that could be an important part of an ongoing supply, just so that you can cook things that you're more excited to eat. Even if this isn't a fully like, oh, this is the plan, everybody do this and then we're all good. I don't think very many solutions are really at that scale. But if we go out and everybody plants these, any decrease in the number of people that are actively out seeking like day-to-day food rations is going to be something that helps whatever the state decides to work on go a little bit further. So take these, stick them in the ground someplace. I don't work for the park, so I'm going to tell you, put it wherever you want.
Hello.
I think that's it. Did I answer your question?
I think this is a really great example of how blue skies resilience is also resilience during a disaster and during gray skies. Could you speak just really briefly on like how you do the training? How do you incorporate this, or what kind of training do you do for community to increase resilience?
So one of my roles at Key Project involves supporting our youth programming. As part of that, when I do it really well, I make the kids cook for themselves, and I make the kids cook at like a ho'ike for their ohana. I think that that's something that's powerful and empowering. I think it would be really awesome to integrate more of this food into the large Key Project community events that we have. People gather all the time, and those are opportunities that, like, if somebody really cared about disaster preparedness and resilience and was looking for a really impactful circumstance to, like, boost community understanding and familiarity with these vegetables, they wanted to show up and say, like, you know what, anytime there's a gathering that's over 2,000 people, we're just going to donate like a huge pot full of this kalamungai, coconut milk, and corned beef hash, just so that people know this is an easy recipe. You can stash it for less than $4 plus bush vegetables. Like, there are opportunities to increase community understanding and familiarity with these. And I think that the people who organize the huge community events would also potentially appreciate the support in providing food, knowing that feeding people is a really important part of how we like to take care of each other. So I think that that's one example. There's the training of our like mouths and minds, which you can only do by eating the food. And then there's training of what to do in the kitchen to safely prepare it. So those are kind of separate things to tackle with different strategies. And then the goal is to pick the right plants so that you don't have to also teach people how to grow it, because it's just stuff that people like grow, or that likes to grow by itself. So there you go. Did that answer your question? Sweet. Everybody up here is really fun, and we like working with all of them. So I just wanted to mahalo all of the other exhibitors for being here today too. So thank you.
How's it going, everybody? The three of us here are ambassadors from Vibrant Hawaii. I am Lucas. This is Hemi, followed by Nika. Today we are here to bring you 3 non-perishable meals in a bag. So starting off, we have a vegetarian option of our sun-dried tomato gnocchi. We know you guys like pretty much everything we made because we had them on the assembly line pumping out, more and more. You guys kept coming back. Right after that, we have our taco rice bowls. This is something super easy. If you need to grab this and go, you can make it over a campfire or nothing but a pot. And it's pretty like what I would make at home. So I saw you guys looked in it. And lastly, for one of our desserts, we have chocolate peanut butter oat balls. These are thick and protein filled and very, very tasty. And we had to continue to bring them out because people coming back for thirds and tastes that.
Hi everyone, I'm Honey. First off, I just want to say thank you guys so much for having us. We're so honored and grateful to be here. So these are meal in a bag recipes. So the concept of this is non-perishable items that can fit into a Ziploc bag that can feed about a family from 4 to 5 people. We also have these pamphlets that we're handing out. This is our household preparedness and our meal in a recipe cookbooks. So you can come and grab some, take a look, and you can make your own meal in a bag recipes. So if a disaster ever happened, you can just grab your Ziploc and go. All you really need is a gas stove, and you pretty much have a meal that can feed your whole family. Hi, I'm Nika. Every year, we actually offer our Summer Resilience Academy programs with our youth on Hawaiʻi Island. These are 3-day community-based programs across Hawaiʻi Island where we equip and prepare our appeal for real-world preparedness skills. And here they learn more about personal, household, and community resilience. And on the final day, they implement all of the skills and tools that they learn throughout the academy with hands-on activities, one of them including the canned good cook-off, where they use non-perishable items and they create meals. And so we try to build confidence and teach them more about being prepared, especially in emergencies, if they have limited resources. So we hope you guys enjoyed some of our meals that we have out.
I was going to ask you questions, but you kind of answered them all. So thank you very much for being so thorough. So that kind of includes the showcase. I really encourage everybody to come, talk to them, learn more. This is really an opportunity to engage in thoughtful conversations. There are a variety of different approaches to household emergency food preparedness, and hopefully this gets the conversation started. I also wanted to highlight that 14 days of food and water and medicine. And so this right here, these bags each of them has 2.5 gallons of water. These bags, at least for City and County folks, you can get for free from the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu folks, sorry. You can get for free from the Board of Water Supply. This is a 14-day supply. So you can get a sense of, 1, how heavy it is, and 2, how much for one person. Sorry, that's 14 days supply for one person. So you can get a sense of how heavy it is, how much space it takes up, and gets you thinking about what that might look like for a family of 4 or 5 or 6 or more. But that's it for the showcase. Thank you very much. I'm gonna walk up here. How about another hand for the... I'm the last thing between you and lunch, so I'll try and be brief. But I wanted to take the time to cover some important topics from sirens, Elvis, crackers, toilet paper, to China, which I hope to cover the next 10 minutes. So, what we heard this morning was really learning a lot and exploring how disaster response works across different scales and sectors. We learned about some of the formal systems from state agencies and community organizations, and saw practical examples of how communities are addressing household emergency preparedness. From the cross-sector panel, we see that different organizations have different activation triggers, capabilities, but coordination and clear communication are critical. And as we are all human, they remain challenging. From the preparedness showcase, getting a sense of the broad spectrum, right, of how communities are innovating around a 14-day supply challenge and addressing real barriers of cost, space, cultural relevance, nutritional needs, price. Throughout, I think what this highlights of it is that the gap isn't just in our pantry, but it's in our playbook. There's remnant uncertainty around who does what when the business as usual systems break. So in this overwhelmingly complex visual diagram, I've attempted to visualize an even overwhelmingly complex spreadsheet, but really tried to highlight the cascade of relationships, roles, and responsibilities between these different scales of planning. And at the foundation, right, is community level response, household preparedness. There is detailed in there, and we can share this subsequently, a whole slew of other funding and technical plans that are developed, and really trying to highlight that there is this cascade of information and resources moving up and down across these different layers of coordination. And this graphic shows why it matters, right? Our emergency feeding system is founded upon these community responses. But in emergency planning, we could say there are emergency management planning assumptions, the sort of baseline expectations that inform a lot of these plans. It's about how long help will take to arrive, what might still work, and who's responsible for what. So I thought I'd dig into a little bit of what I've at least gleaned on maybe where we got some of these assumptions and how we might want to continue thinking deeply about what some of those assumptions are. Particularly for something as household food security does stay at Hawaii. Next slide, please. So every month, Hawaii sirens sound 11:45 a.m. on first sort of working day, right? It's background noise for most of us. But when those sirens and some of the planning assumptions I think that we operate from, those date back to the early 1960s, when the threat of nuclear fallout, and the assumption was that we would be spending 14 days in a shelter. Remember January 13th, 2018? Right? Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. For 38 minutes, we got a slight taste of what 1960s civil defense planning actually felt like. Ironically, the sirens weren't actually part of it because it was a different coordination and activation system. But when those sirens and the 14-day supply standard were being established in Hawaii, Elvis's Blue Hawaii and Can't Help Falling in Love was the soundtrack of the world. Right? So things have changed a little bit. The only thing bigger than Elvis at the time was the concern around nuclear war. So the federal government, the Office of Civil Defense and Mobilization edict was that households should be preparing for a 14-day supply of food and water, readying every household to retreat into a public or a private fallout shelter. Thus, on the right there, you could buy an emergency pack from mid-packed lumber with that 14-day supply for $10.95, maybe around $120 or so today, at any essentially department store located across the island. So fortified crackers, food and water that you can sustain yourself with as you huddle underground with those of you. That 14-day time frame, as I highlighted, right, wasn't chosen by Hawaii. It was a federal Cold War doctrine. Survival crackers and fallout shelters. The shelters are long gone. Well, many of them. Crackers certainly have expired. But the 14-day assumption persists, right? It still informs, and I'm sure there's been subsequent analysis to look into it, but it persists in our emergency guidance. And in the middle bit there, go back real quick. While we'll always seek some comedy and calamity, there's a lampooning of the Governor Quinn in the 1960s era, and some of our Guy Hoggy responses to the missile concerns, we'll say. But we will always do that, but our planning assumptions need to evolve with our vulnerabilities. We shouldn't be planning for 2030s risks with 1960s assumptions about government or about community capacity. Because risk and the vulnerabilities we face really continue to evolve. And so part of my academic research, if you go to the next slide, please, is about how this risk within our food system has changed and continues to change. So when we look to, say, prior to Western arrivals from the islands, really there was the foundation of risk in the food system was ecological, largely. To some degree, warfare, but whether warfare, these were localized hazards. Community preparedness took the form of crop diversification, famine foods, as Joe and company highlighted, alternate capacities that could be pursued at the local level. As the islands began to integrate more into, say, a fledgling global economy, the sandalwood trade created our first economic famine. So vulnerability went from being ecological to one of the changes that were being wrought on the islands as external forces reshaped internal processes. In the 20th century, firmly integrated, we could say, into the global market economy, our risk concentrated in our port systems. This sort of key node, which was critical for both export of goods we were producing and the import of goods we were increasingly consuming, became a focal point of about a generation of dock strikes from the 1940s to the 1970s that were recurring, to the extent that the other persistent planning assumption coming out of that dock strike era is you got to go get toilet paper whenever something might happen. Because shortages were a lived reality. And so the 21st century, right, is what we see now is in the type of hazards that we face, whether it was a global economic crisis or a global pandemic, that risk is systemic, that we are teleconnected into the global finance mechanisms, transportation pathways, and also have the benefit of some of the diversity of foods and opportunities that being integrated into that global system provides. But that also compounds, right? These aren't necessarily, we're not losing one risk and gaining another. They compound on top of one another. So we still have localized hazards, and farmers I work with, I know regularly have issues of flood and famine and otherwise. But on top of that, we have a new bevy of concerns. And so I think what we come to in this is that risk has evolved from localized to integrated, to nodal to systemic. And while your household 14-day supply is still important, we need to also be considering the systemic vulnerability, and if that requires different types of thinking about who controls decisions when supply chains break, and really thinking about, are there some updated assumptions that we want to consider? And I think the panels and the community work that happened today really highlighted better than this slide could the spectrum of thinking that goes into emergency management coordination in formal systems and in community systems. So to try and move it forward quickly, since I can see hungry eyes looking at me across the room, I would offer that the structural condition of food system that is highly dependent on imports. We have been hand-wringing about import dependency since at least the 1880s here in the islands. We cannot stockpile our way out of a structural dependency, right? So what we end up needing is both emergency preparedness and systems that function when that external system maybe breaks or doesn't function in the way that we would expect it to. This also highlights that there may be some hard truths about food system resilience and what kinds of systems might be more resilient. Could you just next slide, please? Anybody? I don't know what system's looking for. I keep pointing at you, Lola. It's not even great. Radical self-sufficiency, at least looking historically, the famine return period in the islands prior to Western integration was much higher. We stopped having famines in the 1800s. And I think that's a good thing, right? So radical, no island is an island. Well, maybe not anymore, right? We are integrating into a global system, and there are benefits from that. And we are unlikely to cleave ourselves from a global market economy. But strategic interdependence is where we can gain ground. We can build export markets, including, as I think, viewing the visitor industry in particular as a form of export market that generate revenue for local food system investments, while maintaining global connections, but building local adaptive capacity and creating systems that can shift, particularly critical systems that can shift between internal and external circulation. And this dual circulation approach is something that China has adopted in part of their, we'll say, pursuit of stability of growth, where they build an internal economy for critical needs and pull in resources and export resources as necessary to build whatever it is that's being built. I think for the purposes of the islands, however, these circulation systems are already being built in some cases by the food banks across the island, right? Farm to food bank programs, so that we have the opportunity to build resilience is critical. And the resilience in many of these cases, it is less efficient, right? The redundancy costs money, distributed systems have higher transaction costs, and local decision making is probably lesser than a corporate efficiency. But in crisis, efficiencies can be brittle, and the slack in that system is not waste, it's a shock absorber. And redundancy is actually the adaptive capacity, and the messiness may actually be the problem-solving power that we need. So the beautiful work of working in community that many in this room are already engaged with is critical. So I would offer that the question isn't just, do we have enough food for 14 days, but can we adapt and can we make decisions when the systems we depend on fail? And as Albie can open this up, right, that is the social infrastructural that's also a key piece. So when those sirens sound next month, they're not just testing the warning system, and we can take them as reminders that our planning assumptions may have been formed in a different era of risk, whether those are the government assumptions or the ones that we hold in ourselves or within our communities. And really that the work of resilience begins with updating our assumptions about who does what and when, because the next time that those sirens sound for real, the safest place to be won't just be a shelter, but it will be in a community that has done the work. So mahalo for your commitment to food system resilience. Please enjoy your lunch, and thank you for being here.